Today we're going to talk about comparing rate of change, which if you remember, rate of change and slope are the same thing. We have two different functions. We have Papa's Pizza, and they give us an equation, and then we have Mama's Pizza, and they give us a graph. So some information we want to pay attention to is in both of these functions, x is referring to the number of toppings, and y is our total cost. So if we think back to what you previously learned, when you're looking at an equation, our slope is always the coefficient to x. So Papa's Pizza, my slope or my rate of change is this 0.95, that 95 cents. So what that tells me, I'm multiplying 95 cents by x, and x is the number of toppings. So that's the rate of change because this area total is going to change based on how many toppings you have. If you just order a pizza with maybe like just cheese, no extra toppings, it's $9. That's our base fee. And if we look down here at Mama's Pizza, my x and y are going to represent the same thing. So remember, your x are your values that go horizontal, side to side. So these numbers represent my number of toppings. And my y values that go vertical, that's going to represent my total cost. So one thing to keep in mind is if you notice, I have everything plotted in quadrant 1. Quadrant 2, 3, and 4 would all have a negative value in them. When we're talking about ordering pizza, negative numbers aren't going to make sense because we're not going to get charged a negative amount for buying a pizza. We're not going to get charged a negative amount per topping. And you guys have probably done some examples like that in your classrooms where negative numbers wouldn't make sense in a graph or a table based on the scenario that you're talking about, the verbal description that you're working with. So now I know that Papa's Pizza is 95 cents per topping. We want to find out how much does Mama's Pizza charge per topping. That way we can compare them. So if I'm looking here, it looks like I have a point plotted right here, which is on my y-axis. So that point would represent x being 0. So when x was 0, or when we didn't get any regular toppings, how much was y? Well, this is 10 and this is 12. It's right in between, so it looks like this might be referring to 11. So if I'm looking at this, if all I did was get a pizza with no extra toppings, it's going to be $11. Remember, up here we said when all we did was get a pizza with no toppings, it was $9. So I'm thinking that plus 11 is going to go over here. I know that my coefficient to x, my slope or rate of change, is what's going to go right here. So that's what we need to find out. When I went over to buy one topping, we need to find out, okay, what happened there. So if I follow this down, that looks like that's at the 12. So one topping made my total cost $12. Let's follow this point down. Two toppings made my total cost, looks like that might be in between, so made my total cost $13. So if we notice what's going on, one topping moved it from 11 to 12, two toppings moved it from 12 to 13. Now some of you can just fill that rate of change in right then, and some of you might need to find the slope between the points. And we've given you multiple ways where you can do that. You can either get the ordered pairs and do your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can make your triangle and count. So if this is a point, and I'm going to go up to here, remember that's change in y over change in x. So I went up 1, and I went over 1. 1 over 1 is 1. So that tells me that my rate of change, my slope, my cost per topping is $1. So you could have y equals 1x plus 11, which also technically is the same thing as y equals x plus 11. Because we know that if there's no number in front of our variable, it's understood to be a 1. So now we want to compare these. We want to look at, okay, who has a greater slope, a greater rate of change, or who is charging more per topping. Papa's Pizza is 95 cents per topping. Mama's Pizza is $1 per topping. So we would say that Mama's has a greater slope or rate of change because $1 for each topping is more or greater than 95 cents per topping. If we look at this, we would also know that Mama's Pizza charges more per pizza on this example. I'm going to do another example in the next video where we're comparing a table with a graph. So make sure to check that one out as well.